Good evening. This is Maestro Critello with the Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite Modcast. Today we have a 2v2 on Golgotha Depths. Our first player today is DJ Raffa, playing as the Force Commander. We've got one of the new custom elite schemes on show. Unfortunately, I don't entirely remember which one, but it looks really cool. He's got a new helmet. Force Commander is a tanky melee hero. He ties stuff up, tanks damage. He can also buff units with Battlecry and disrupt units with Battlecry. His teammate is Pibb, playing as the Ravener Alpha. The Ravener Alpha starts off as a ranged hero, but he can get some melee weapons. His main thing, though, is that he can create tunnels that gives him a lot of mobility, since he can very quickly transport his units around the map, and his allies can use the tunnels too. Next up, we've got Team Double Chaos Lord, played by Nurland and Osinski. Chaos Lord is a tanky melee hero in Terminator armor, so he cannot be knocked down or suppressed. And Nurland's is also one of the new custom elite schemes. This one is a World Eater's Chaos Lord, so he's got that corn helmet. He's got kind of like a very interesting skull face thing, as well as some like clawed feet. Osinski's Chaos Lord is yet another one of the new custom elite schemes. Unfortunately, I don't remember what this one is, but I will eventually memorize them all. So we've got Osinski's Chaos Lord chasing down the Force Commander. It looks like Osinski is in a lane against Raffa. Raffa actually being very aggressive and is actually going up to Osinski's natural VP, the natural VP for the red team, and he's actually getting a decap. He stops the full cap. Well, he had the scouts capping. They were taking too much damage. Well, this is, yeah. Raffa's scouts were taking too much damage, so he had them retreat and then had the tax take up the cap, since they would be able to tank a lot more damage. Meanwhile, Osinski's Chaos Space Marines already with Eternal War, a very fast Eternal War upgrade. A little curious. It's generally not the most choice upgrade to get, like, especially when you only have 2 squads, but he just decided to do it. Looks like Raffa's tax taking up the bunker over here, so a lot of garrison warfare, and that's got to be like the maximum range for the tax. I'm almost surprised that they can shoot that far over to the Chaos Lord, and pretty good judgment by Osinski, and maybe just knowledge that he knows that from this garrison over here you can actually shoot at whatever's capturing the natural VP. Meanwhile, while Raffa was being aggressive over here and getting a decap on the red team's natural, it looks like Osinski was doing a bit of the same on the other side. We've also got a Chaos Lord now with the Combi Flamer, which is a pretty good upgrade overall. I think very good against any of the infantry races, since you can just do a lot of range damage to squads like Termagants, Dire Avengers, Guardsmen, all that stuff. We do have a Toxin Sax upgrade to grant the Crippling Poison, which is normally a very good upgrade against the Chaos Lord or any tanking melee hero recently. The only issue with that here is the fact that the Chaos Lord with the Combi Flamer is actually going to be doing enough range damage to threaten them even if he's being snared. There we saw an Immolate go down, which is the ability from the Combi Flamer, which is just an area of effect attack, flame damage. It's an interesting ability. It's not overly powerful. It's definitely not something that like people complain about. But if you can just catch an opportunity to use it against any kind of infantry unit that's standing still, it can be pretty nice. It also functions as anti-garrison, of course. Meanwhile, Heretics waiting out here using a line of sight blocker so that the tactical Marines that are hiding in the bunker can't really shoot at them. And he's also just keeping his Heretics there just in case they get out. They'll be in a lot of trouble. Like, this is a pretty bad situation, except for the fact that the retreat path is actually favoring DJ Raffa, so he doesn't get out of there losing too much. Might see, yeah, kill the weak on retreat, but still not enough to take out any of those TAC models. Meanwhile, over here, Nurland getting forced off, and in part he's got double grenade launcher Heretics, which is going to be very good for the Termagants, but it means he doesn't have as much to deal with the Warriors, and he's mainly going to be relying on this Havoc, I think, to deal with the Warriors. So it's pretty smart that he had that Havoc set up in a real backward position, like behind the rest of his army entirely. So basically, because it was pretty inevitable that the Warriors would actually get into melee with the rest of Nurland's infantry, So just luring it into that Havoc firing arc. Force Commander here needs to go. That knockdown is something that can be very, very troublesome. There are certainly many times where if you have your hero just in combat and you feel like you're safe, having him get knocked down could be enough to make him not be safe. And Spore Mines right here can be very, very powerful against Chaos early on for dealing with Heretics. You can wipe out Heretic squads even from full health, especially if they don't have an aspiring champion. But the Chaos Lord took care of them pretty well. Since those Spore Mines not going to do a whole lot to him, and he's pretty good at destroying them, especially when he has that combi flavor. So we see Nurland going for a long tier 1, and that's generally pretty common with Chaos builds these days, and there are definitely a lot of good things about it, especially with a Chaos Lord. This is just a lot of pressure early on when you've got a Chaos Lord and so many squads supporting him. It really gives him a lot of field presence. He can be really, really aggressive, just because there's so much stuff. Now the downside to it is that you are getting a lot of units, investing a lot of resources, so probably going to get to tier 2 late. Although Nurland actually does have the resources to go to tier 2. That being said, Osinski went for the opposite. He went for a short tier 1, and he's already in tier 2 and starting to get a blood pressure. When Raffa over here isn't even in tier 2. Warriors seem like they're way out of position, but there's not actually a whole lot that's going to threaten them that badly. One model does die. But once they get into the Havoc firing range, they're not actually going to be able to do that much. We've actually got a flank from Raffa. Looks like he was trying to go for a grenade toss on the Havocs. The Havocs actually still need to keep moving because these scouts are still here. So yeah, Nurland knows that the scouts are there, so he's not going to set up the Havoc anytime soon. Meanwhile, here is Osinski's blood pressure, and Raffa hasn't even started tier 2. He's starting it now, so he's in a bit of trouble. Blood pressure does seem like an interesting choice against Raffa, considering Raffa is playing as the Force Commander, and although he's not in tier 2 yet, the Force Commander is still the best hero in the game for countering walkers, including blood crushers, just with the Power Fist and that Flesh over Steel ability. I believe one thing that has actually changed, it's something I don't believe, but this is what I've been told, that the Flesh over Steel ability now tracks. That means that it hits even if you move your unit out of the way. Once the animation starts, it's guaranteed to hit. So most normal melee attacks track. That is, once the animation starts, it's guaranteed to hit even if the unit moves out of the way. Special attacks do not track. So if a unit moves out of the way of a special attack, it does not get hit by that. Flesh over Steel used to not track, and I've been told that it does track now. Which, if it does, I feel like that's almost too powerful, considering it was like a little too powerful even when it did track. Anyway, we even have a hard lane switch by Osinski. He's just got his blood pressure in Pibb's lane, and Pibb, well, Pibb is in tier 2. He actually doesn't have much AV himself. He's getting a Venom Brood right now. He does use the Zone Throw to use the Focus Warp Blast to snare the blood pressure and do some damage to it, but without anything to follow it up, that's really not going to be that threatening. Meanwhile, Raffa's actually being pretty annoying with some back caps. It seems like he's always over here, generally has red team's natural VP, although the red team still has the VP lead, so maybe doesn't have it that much. While these Noise Marines are going to be losing models very, very fast. One of the other great things about this Power Fist Force Commander, aside from being such a powerful walker counter, oh, that's got to be the end of the Noise Marines. I don't see how they're going to get out of there alive. Just one attack from that Force Commander should be the end of them. Even, you know what, might not even need the Power Fist Force Commander yet, just some shots from those attacks, but the Force Commander with the Power Fist, aside from being good against walkers, He's just really good at sniping infantry models because he does so much damage per hit. And wow, this Force Commander just might be in trouble. He does get out of there alive, but he doesn't even get the Flesh over Steel off on the Blood Crusher. And I really like what I'm seeing from Osinski. He's using the Mantle of Hate. This is in Elite, this is the least commonly used armor warrior for the Chaos Lord, even though it was considered like overpowered in retail. And what it does is that we saw it there, it levitated the Force Commander for a bit. So it just kind of disables a single entity. It was a very powerful hero counter in retail. And what was changed in Elite mod is that it doesn't last as long. In retail, I believe it lasted for 6 seconds. In Elite, I believe it lasts for 3 seconds. So it's not as powerful, not as commonly seen, but Osinski's using it anyway. And it can still control a single entity. And what we're seeing here is he's using that on the Force Commander right as the Force Commander is going towards the Blood Crusher to preempt that Flesh over Steel and allow his Blood Crusher to just dominate. And now Osinski even has 2 Blood Crushers. And when I think about that, that's also something that could potentially be good against a Force Commander with a Power Fist, despite the Force Commander traditionally being the most powerful walker counter in the game. Because what Osinski can do here, he can use the Blood Crusher's abilities to prevent the Force Commander from... Wow! And the Force Commander did Flesh over Steel all the way over here when he was in melee with the Chaos Space Marines because he had already started it, and it hit the Blood Crusher when he wasn't even next to the Blood Crusher. So, alright, Flesh over Steel definitely tracks, and that was really, really stupid. There's absolutely no way he should hit a Blood Crusher from that range. Alright, Force Commander now in a lot of trouble, and he's definitely going to go down. But yeah, I like what I'm seeing from Osinski, and there, I was going to talk about how he can use the Blood Crusher's abilities to stop the Force Commander, especially if one Blood Crusher gets hit by Flesh over Steel, he can use the abilities from the other Blood Crusher. He can use the Charge or the Roar. We're also seeing Osinski using the Sweeping Doom ability from the Blood Maul as a way of protecting his Blood Crusher. So I know I'm talking a lot about Blood Crushers sometimes, even when that's not where things are happening, but I just think it's very interesting the way that Osinski is choosing to use Blood Crushers against the hero that counters it harder than anybody else. And managing to make it work by using a lot of abilities to protect them. So we've got his double Blood Crushers roaming around. We've got more backcapping scouts from Raffa, and that's putting them back in the game on VPs since they did have a VP deficit. And here we go with the Force Commander again being levitated, although I think that time was... I wonder if it was entirely necessary that time. Flesh over Steel going to go off on one Blood Crusher, and he just retreats out of there. Just because he's also just taking too much damage from the 2 Blood Crushers. That's a lot of heavy melee damage. We also got to be really careful now because DJ Raffa is really investing a lot in AV because he hasn't been able to take out any of these Blood Crushers. So now he's got a Las Cannon Devastator as well as some Stern Guard veterans with Vengeance routes. So he's got to be very, very careful. He's setting up the Las Cannon. Again, we just need something to go in, get, and tie up that Blood Crusher before it can finish off, or tie up the Devastators before it can finish off that Blood Crusher. And we had a Blood Sacrifice on the Heretic models. Osinski is a big proponent of the Blood Sacrifice. Just sacrifices one of your infantry models to spawn a few Bloodletters. And Osinski just talks about a lot that if you have that red, you should use it on Blood Sacrifice for the Chaos Lord. It can really help you win engagement to suddenly have 4 Bloodletters, and if just to sacrifice one Heretic model really isn't that big of a deal for what it can give you in an engagement. So Blood Crusher's still alive for Osinski, and he's also doing this on a single Heretic build. And he can do that on a single Heretic build because he can repair or heal both Blood Crushers just with one squad of Worshipping Heretics.
Their foul champion seeks our death. Answer in kind.
So Nurland moving out of here with his big, big army. He's got Bloodletters, so he didn't invest a whole lot in Tier 2, but he's still got the big army. That does also mean he's got a lot of upkeep. If we look at his income, he's at 163, which is absolutely ridiculous. He probably, yeah, that means he's got some Aspiring Champions. He's got Aspiring Champions on all of his Heretic squads, as well as on his Chaos Space Marines. So he's got a lot of upkeep. Osinski already getting a Predator because he's been fast-teching all game. These Blood Crushers are vehicles and they can be powerful, but at the same time, they don't actually cost that much to get out on the field. They're relatively cheap, and they don't even they don't have any upgrades either. So one Blood Crusher is in a bit of trouble, getting hit by the Las Cannon. But if these Khorne Marines can actually get into melee with the Devastator, that can actually save that Blood Crusher. So still the Blood Crushers are alive. One more shot would have taken out this Blood Crusher, but it wasn't going to get it off with these Khorne Marines approaching. So Osinski just doing a lot of stuff to protect his Blood Crushers. It almost seems like his play right now is centered entirely on the Blood Crushers, and everything else is focused on protecting the Blood Crushers. He's either got the Khorne Marines running in to tie things up. He's got the Chaos Lord disrupting any of the AV units that are going to be threatening the Chaos Lord, specifically the Force Commander. Now, Nurland over here has got some interesting things going on. He's got double grenade launcher heretics, both with Aspiring Champions, I guess because he wants to be able to detect these Sniper Scouts, as well as maybe, just in case Pibb decides to get more Spore Mines, his heretics will be a little bit safer against any Spore Mines that Pibb might get, although I don't think he's going to get that. Instead, he's got a Tier 3 Lictor, which is pretty curious. Usually Tyranid players will just go ahead, start getting out the Tier 3 train of Carnifexes and a Swarm Lord, maybe a Doom of Malantai, but the Lictor is definitely the least commonly seen Tier 3 unit from Tyranids. That doesn't mean it's not good. It can still definitely be effective. We're talking about a single entity, 1250 hit points, does something like 80 to 90 DPS with its melee attacks, and I believe it does heavy melee, and it's infiltrating. So, definitely a very powerful unit. It's just, I guess, just overshadowed a bit. And here we see the Force Commander again. This Force Commander really hasn't been able to do much, to be honest. As much as you don't see the Mantle of Hate used very often these days, it's very clearly negating the Force Commander in this game, as well as making Raffa unhappy.
Adding support structure.
Anyway, Chaos Lord running in here. He's still got the Combi Flamer. It's not a bad thing in a while. Look at Pibb's entire army getting scared off just by the teleport of a Bloodletter. I think that might have been a little unnecessary. I think he should have just retreated the Zoanthrope, and that's definitely why he just panicked and just retreated stuff out of there. Because if he did not retreat, the Zoanthrope could have died just from the Bloodletters, and it's really like if he did not react fast enough, he could have lost the Zoanthrope entirely. But I don't think he needed to teleport the rest of his army, or retreat the rest of his army. Because I think with the Termagants around, he could have snared the Bloodletters with Crippling Poison. Although, I mean, now Pibb is just kind of answering back and counterattacking now that he's in a more favorable position. Overrunning the Heretics from Nurland. Nurland needs to be very careful. He needs to get one of those squads of Heretics out of there. In fact, yeah, he needs to get that squad of Heretics out of there. And Bloodletters, pretty threatening under that Khorne worship, since they're suddenly very fast. They're almost like Khorne Marines under worship. Actually, even faster. They might... Oh, I thought they were going to continue the chase on that Zoanthrope. I think it would have been worth it to try, since I think definitely, if not one hit, then definitely two hits would have finished off that Zoanthrope from the Bloodletters. Zoanthrope is made of paper, very low health for a single entity, which makes it very, very vulnerable to high DPS melee units. Now, this autocannon is actually firing, it's attacking ground. It had to be attacking ground, but for some reason it stopped. Or, I don't know. I thought it attacked ground. Maybe Pibb didn't actually start infiltrating it until after he started getting shot. But he took a little bit of damage. Ooh, and I missed it, but it looks like Osinski actually finally did lose one of his Blood Crushers. So that might change just a little bit how he's doing things. He does have a Predator out on the field, and it's a little bit more tricky to support a Predator and a Blood Crusher with only one Heretic squad. That's a really bad situation for the Devastator Marines, except for the fact that those were apparently not a Bloodletter squad. They must have been... Yeah, they must have been Shrine Bloodletters from Osinski. Unfortunately, this Shrine is done. Being targeted by a las cannon, so Shrine goes down from Osinski. We also have another Shrine from Nurland, so that's going to spawn Bloodletters. Another thing it's going to do is it's going to give a 10% damage buff to units that are around the Shrine, and can be pretty good in combination with autocannon Havocs, and especially if you get more than one, it can be pretty devastating. And then the Bloodletters that spawn from the Shrine can actually help to, like, bodyguard whatever's over here.
We are losing a requisition point to the enemy.
Meanwhile, we've got a Predator from DJ Raffa. Osinski has a Predator, but he's got a Mark of Khorne Predator, whereas Raffa has a las cannon Predator. No extra armor yet, but las cannon Predator will have an advantage over the Mark of Khorne Predator.
Understood.
So things are slowing down a little bit, except for the fact that we've got the Predator being chased down, but a little bit risky for it to be chased down by the Blood Crusher. But here is Osinski's Predator moving in to help out, and the Blood Crusher backs off. So good idea to back off the Blood Crusher, because it can definitely risk dying from a las cannon Predator. Now, the las cannon Predator would normally have an advantage, but we've also got some Khorne Marine support, which is going to do some light AV, so it's actually the las cannon Predator that goes down in that engagement, and Raffa tried to support it with repairs, but unfortunately I think that was just not a winning engagement for him, and I think he should have continued backing it off into his base while getting some support to deal with the Khorne Marines, like maybe have the Vanguard veterans jump on the Khorne Marines.
Charge power fist.
Force Commander is bought back, and we also have Vanguard veterans getting their Power Fist upgrade. 80 requisition and 30 power. That's pretty expensive, to be honest.
We have 100 points remaining.
Infiltrated scouts running around. Gonna try to throw a grenade on the heretics. Is Osinski paying attention? Will he react? No, he does not. So he probably has attention somewhere else, maybe over here where his Khorne Marines and his Chaos Lord and his Blood Crusher are. So he's moving off the Predator. Predator's now in a bit of trouble because the Force Commander will teleport, but he does not have the energy for a Flesh over Steel. So he was not able to finish it off, but we do have the Vanguard veterans running in here. 5 hit points on that Chaos Predator. 1, where is it at 1? And it just goes down somehow. I don't even know how it went down. Anyway, oh, I didn't even see this. A Land Raider Phobos out from Osinski now. And it doing a lot of damage. So one of the things I learned about the Land Raider Phobos is that it has roughly the same DPS as a las cannon Predator with its las cannons, but it actually does more burst damage, because both of the las cannons, if they fire at the same time, they both do about, like, I think 170 damage, maybe more. So it's doing a lot more damage when each of those las cannons shoot at the same time than when a las cannon Predator shoots. That's something that I also think makes it tricky to use other tanks against the Land Raider Phobos, or non-super unit tanks, because it can really take out a nice chunk out of take a nice big chunk out of the health of regular tanks, kind of like how the Baneblade was back in retail. Oh, I think we saw that ability there from the Swarm Lord. I think that's going to result in the death of the Khorne Space Marines. Man, they went down fast. But that was the Storm of Blades from the Swarm Lord, knocking over and doing a lot of damage. This is a very, very interesting. We have a Flesh over Steel, making it really hard for this Land Raider to get out of there. And it actually gets finished off by the combination of a Flesh over Steel and an Orbital Bombardment. Normally, an Orbital Bombardment would not be a good choice against vehicle super units unless you can combine it with a Snare and get that unit to just stay in there long enough. And I think one thing that also worked against Osinski there was that his Shrine was probably blocking the alternate exit. He needed to drive back, and the Shrine was preventing him. He could not drive forward because just the Shrine was blocking him, so he did not have that option. VP is now pretty significantly in favor of the red team, 77 to 310. That's really, really bad for the zone. That's the end of the zone throw, surely. All right, and we've got that. The Great Unclean One from Osinski. It does have the Foul Snare ability, which functions a lot like the Lictor Alpha's Flesh over Steel ability. Like the Lictor Alpha's Flesh Hook ability. Just pulls in one unit, and it can be very, very dangerous for all the same reasons. It's a little bit more justifiable because this is on a Tier 3 super unit that costs a fortune, as opposed to a hero that you just have to pick. But still very, very powerful, and it's going to be very, very difficult to keep a Zone Thrope alive against this Great Unclean One. Also going to be difficult to keep this Doom of Melantai alive that Pibb just purchased. So if anything, I'm surprised to see him get that.
An allied structure has been destroyed.
Alright, meanwhile, we've got another Blood Crusher hit by Flesh over Steel. Can the Force Commander finish it off? We've also got the Noise Marines, the Blastmaster Noise Marines, in a bit of trouble because they've been jumped by Vanguard Veterans. They just might go down. And the Blood Crusher actually does not go down. I guess just too much stuff here. Vanguard's paying for their approach with their lives. I think only one Vanguard is going to get out of there. Actually, two managed to make it out of there. Pretty lucky, I think. He could have. That almost looked like it could have been the entire squad. And again, we see that Doom of Melantai. He was hit by the Foul Snare ability, but did manage to make it out of there. Luckily for the Doom of Melantai, he does have more health than the Zone Throw by quite a bit, so he's got a little bit more survivability. So, wow, Red Team actually taking a double cap again, and they've got a huge VP lead, 39 to 299. So let me look over here. Yeah, we've got some scouts about to infiltrate, and we'll probably see them go for a decap. Now, we've got a Havoc protecting from potential back caps, but what the scouts can do, they can just go ahead and get the cap because they'll be infiltrated for as long as they're decapping. But instead they choose to use the grenade, and I feel like that's not such a great choice. I mean, that's good for countering the Havoc, but they need the VP, and they're running out of VPs right now, and now they're not going to get that VP. So instead it looks like it's going to be the Stern Guards over here that are going to get the decap off, and one of the Heretic models are going, or one of the Heretic squads are going to go down for Nurland. Nurland also losing track of his Chaos Space Marines as well. They are shooting point blank at a Force Commander, so the Force Commander punches them in the face for being so stupid. And Bloodletter's also a very close call for the Bloodletters as well, down to 1 out of 4 models. So Nurland getting hit very, very hard in that engagement. He seemed to just maybe drop his micro a little bit. I don't know what happened there. There we go with a Sweeping Doom, knocking down much of the Tyranid army, although not knocking down a Swarm Lord, and that Chaos Lord just using a bunch of abilities to deal with a lot of Tyranids himself, but he's probably going to go down now. Uses a third ability, gets a Kill the Weaken there to ensure his survivability. So that's absolutely ridiculous, just how the Chaos Lord can survive that well. There is that tracking special, or that tracking Flesh over Steel. But again, we have the Chaos Lord in here, and we've got Osinski. Even though he lost one of the Blood Crushers, he's now got a level 3 Blood Crusher well into Tier 3, and that's incredibly, incredibly uncommon. People usually take it for granted that Blood Crushers will eventually die. And now we've got the Swarm Lord all the way in base, and Nurland's actually having trouble dealing with this. Even though he does have a Great Unclean One that can do damage to the Swarm Lord, it doesn't do damage that fast. And he doesn't have anything else, any other kind of AV and anything else to snare. So where his Heretics are about to come back, they could get wiped. Ooh, but now we do have a Predator out for Nurland, so that should actually be the end of this end of this Swarm Lord, now way overextended, and there's no way it's going to get away from the Predator, so instead he just goes for it, trying to kill as much as he can. So he gives up a Swarm Lord, which is pretty costly, but I mean, that did also keep Nurland in his base for a while, and that does buy the blue team some time to just hold the double cap and just get them back in this game at 19 to 230. We now have some Assault Terminators for Raffa, and wow, I didn't even see it, but apparently he lost his Land Raider. And Osinski's really showing off how incredibly good that Blood Maul is. I think there was some discussion recently about comparing the Blood Maul to the Power Claws, or the Lightning Claws. But I mean, the Blood Maul is really, really being incredible in this game, and it's just really working out really well for Osinski. Chaos Terminator's now in a bit of trouble, but they do have their teleport. Otherwise, they were going to take a huge amount of damage from these Bloodletters. Venom Brood needs to get out of there. They're going to get force meleeed by the Terminators. They are way overextended, and at this point, they're probably going to go down, taking way too much damage from the Terminators. That's it for the Venom Brood. I don't know what happened there. Pibb probably maybe just lost track of them. We have, that looks like, oh, that was a Warrior Brood model that got pulled in. For a second, I thought that was the Lictor, but the Lictor taking out Nurland's Predator. And it looked like Nurland was not even moving it, probably just, again, paying attention to something else and just letting his Predator get killed by a Lictor.
An ally's forces are under attack.
So one of the other good uses of that Blood Maul is that it does stun Assault Terminators, or any kind of unit that cannot be knocked down. You can use that stun on them as a way of controlling them. Although I think it would be nicer if he had the stun now. But oh, do we have Nurland with the Blood Maul as well? So we've got both Chaos Heroes with the Blood Maul. Here is an Imperial Abyss, but it actually looks like it's doing almost nothing. Well, we've got both Chaos Heroes with the Blood Maul as a way of disrupting. Chaos Terminators with the Lightning Claws now in a lot of trouble. I think we should have some Heretic Worship to help the Lightning Claw Terminators from the Chaos player get out of there. Alright, and there we finally see some worship, but one of the Heretic squads might go down for it. Very, very close call. This other Heretic squad probably going to lose a bunch of models as well. Alright, doesn't lose a bunch of models. I think, if anything, lucky to, well, at 5 out of 9. So now we've got these are a lot of summoned Bloodletters. So one is a Bloodletter squad from Nurland. We also had some Blood Sacrifice Bloodletters out of Osinski, so he's using that again. And I think that's a really, really good choice to use against something like Terminators. Because normally, part of the problem with using anything against Lightning Claw Terminators is that even if it's a squad that can do a lot of damage to the Terminators, they're also going to be taking a lot of damage. And that other squad is definitely not going to have the durability of Terminators. But something like Blood Sacrifice Bloodletters, you don't really care about the damage they take because they're going to expire eventually. So it really doesn't matter if they take much damage. Termagants are way overextended, and they will undoubtedly go down. I don't know what happened there. And here, now Raffa is doing what I feel like he should have done before, which is just getting the decap. He can just get the decap, and the Havoc won't open fire until he actually gets the decap. And that's okay, because he can just settle for the decap, and that's better than just leaving the point in the red team's favor. And that's also, again, that's something that's keeping them in the game right now, because the red team just captured the contested VP. If the red team still had this VP, that probably would have been the end of the game. Meanwhile, these are the Vanguards capturing this point here. Very, very risky. They've got almost no health. They get the decap, and then they jump out. And now we even have the Ravener Alpha resuming the cap. And I don't know how he's managing to keep this cap. I feel like something should be able to knock him off the point or do enough damage to him. I think he's being ignored too much in favor of going after the Lictor. And while the Lictor is much more powerful, right now, it's more important, I think, to stop that cap. it's going to be even harder to force off the Chaos Lord off this point. So we'll see if maybe they can get another thing over here to back cap, but it's going to be a very, very close call. Or I think it's going to be the Predator, as well as the combination of the Force Commander, going to do enough damage. Not only do enough damage, but that's definitely probably going to be the end of the Chaos Lord. Yeah, the Chaos Lord, he tried to disrupt to keep himself on the point, but it was the Predator in the end that was doing too much damage and actually got well, killed the Chaos Lord. Not only got him off the point, but killed him and prevented the cap. Force Commander needs to be very careful right here. He is not going to win against the Lightning Claw Terminators. The Lightning Claw Terminators could have continued attacking the Force Commander, and they definitely would have taken them out. That was a really advantageous position when the Noise Marines had knocked over the Force Commander, because they could have taken the Force Commander out. But this has got to be the end of this. That had to be the end of that Noise Marine squad. Staying in a little too long just to get another shot off, and it did not even manage to knock the Stern Guards off the point. Stern Guard level 4. I bet a lot of stuff. There's a lot of levels right here. Meanwhile, we've got this Havoc squad, which, yeah, this was the Heavy Bolter Havoc squad that was protecting the VP, but now it's actually been switched to a las cannon to try to deal with this new Predator from DJ Raffa. And Raffa really, really not letting up. And one of the things that's going on in this game is that normally Raffa complains about whenever a game is cast of him, it's always cast of him playing poorly and losing, and it's usually kind of embarrassing. So far, he's in. I feel like he's actually so far arguably been the MVP of this game. Really keeping. A lot of times he's really keeping, basically just really keeping the blue team in this game. And I feel like there are a lot of times when this game would have already been over if it wasn't for him. We've got a tracking flesh over steel attack, so one Predator probably going to go down, especially because we've got support from the Predator as well as a Venom Cannon Carnifex. This Predator now in a little bit of trouble, being chased down by a Force Commander. And wow, and just a huge rear armor shot from the las cannon Predator was actually enough before even the Lictor or the Force Commander could get in range, and suddenly the VPs are now 10 to 78. It's not that far in the red team's favor at all, even though the blue team really doesn't have much. Wow, and Pibb actually gives up his Lictor Alpha, or his Lictor, trying to get the blue team's natural. There we go with a Tyranna formation, attempted to wipe out the las cannon Havoc. Actually, a very close call, and Osinski manages to react just in time to not lose his las cannon Havoc. I think even like a split second slower, he would have lost that las cannon Havoc, since Tyranna formations one-shot buildings, and when buildings are destroyed, the squad inside gets killed regardless of how much health it has. So that Havoc still lost a lot of health, and I think that was because it got hit by that Spire right as it came out, probably. Anyway, Chaos Terminators going for the decap. This is pretty much it, all or nothing, but they don't even attempt it. They would definitely lose models, possibly even die, but if they just went on and got the decap, that would be enough to keep Nurland and Osinski in the game. And now we're talking about keeping Nurland and Osinski in the game because the pressure's on them. Meanwhile, we've got the Force Commander running in here. Is he going to get his tracking flesh over steel? You know, it doesn't matter because we've got the Predator on approach, the las cannon Predator, that just blows up that other Predator, seemingly with like 30% hit points left. Unfortunately, the Predators from the Chaos team are just really, really blowing up. And I think if Osinski wants to stay in this game, he needs to have his Terminators go for the VP and just get the decap instead of fighting. But he's not doing that, and he teleports them out of there. And another Predator goes down. And now it's actually the VP's about to tick down in Raffa's as well as Pibb's favor. 10 to 8, 7, 6. I'm not actually going to count down the whole thing, but... But it was quite a comeback. I feel we've got some very suitable music for the end of this game to go along with our Space Marine Victor. And of course we do have our Tyranid Victor as well. But I do feel in this game that DJ Raffa was actually the MVP. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the cast. Have a good night.